Hold on now. Don't scroll, don't blink. Look at me right here. I tell you something, and I need you to hear it the way you hear bad news from a family member who loves you. This ain't just politics on TV. This is money out your pocket, jobs on your street, and power shifting in real time while most folks still arguing about headlines. Because right now, the United States and India are in a stare down. And it ain't the friendly kind. I'm talking 50% U.S. Tariffs on Indian goods 50. That's not a we're upset number. That's a we're drawing a line a number. And India didn't flinch. India looked back and said, cool, we doin' reciprocal. That's grown. Folks talk. That's when both sides stop smiling at the potluck and start guarding their plates. Now pause right there. Steve Harvey's silent stare adjusts suit jacket. You gotta be kidding me. Because people think trade wars are abstract. They sound like something economists argue about on cable news with fancy charts. No, a trade war is like when your neighbor borrows your lawnmower, returns it broken, then gets mad when you lock your garage. Everybody involved swears they're right, and the grass still don't get cut. Here's what makes this different. India said no to a U.S. trade offer, not let's negotiate later, not we'll see, no, and when the world's fifth largest economy tells the world's biggest economy nah, that's a moment. That's history clearing its throat. Now why should you care? Because while you're trying to live your life, global power is quietly rearranging the furniture. And when the couch moves, somebody always stubs a toe. At the same time, these tariffs are hitting the U.S., turns around and tightens the screws on Indian professionals. H-1B visas, the pipeline that fed American tech, medicine, and research for decades, suddenly come with fees and barriers so high folks whisper numbers like $100,000. Whether it's policy, pricing, or pressure, the message lands the same. You cost more than you're worth. And let me tell you something, nobody with options likes being talked to like that. Steve Harvey paws squints at camera, especially not a country with 4 billion people and a long memory. So India starts playing Chinese checkers, not checkers, Chinese checkers, sliding pieces quietly, strengthening energy ties with Russia, expanding trade channels with China even while competing with them, building alternatives so no single country can hold the remote control. That's not betrayal, that's strategy. That's like having more than one bank account when you don't trust the economy, and then, because geopolitics loves drama, you got diplomatic tension layered on top. Trump steps back into the spotlight claiming credit for helping broker an India-Pakistan ceasefire. Whether you clap or roll your eyes, the signal matters. Influence is being asserted. India responds carefully. Pakistan watches closely. The world takes notes. This ain't noise. This is a shift. This is like a church potluck where the host suddenly changes the rules halfway through dinner. Folks still eating, still smiling, but everybody reassessing who they sitting next to and who they bringing food for next time. So when you hear tariffs, hear prices. When you hear visa fees, hear talent moving. When you hear strategic pivot, hear the rules are changing. All right now, come closer, stay with me. This the part where folks usually tune out, but this is where the why lives. And if you understand the why, can't nobody lie to you about the what. Look at me. This didn't start yesterday. This been simmering like a pot somebody forgot on the stove. The United States didn't wake up one morning and say, let's tax India. These tariffs, pushing up toward 50% on major Indian exports, came from a long list of complaints: market access, subsidies, trade imbalance, and agriculture. America's argument is simple on paper. They say India protects its domestic industries too hard, keeps tariffs high on U.S. goods, and blocks things America wants to sell, especially genetically modified crops. Now pause. Steve Harvey eyebrow raise, because this right here. This is where culture meets capitalism. GM crops are normal in the U.S. Corn, soy, cotton everywhere. India, different story. Farmers, environmental groups, and regulators worry about seed dependence, biodiversity, and long-term food security. So India says no. America hears unfair. India hears pressure. That's how two sides look at the same door and argue about who slammed it. So the U.S. pulls the tariff lever. Steel, pharmaceuticals, textiles, auto components. Industries where India competes globally. India responds in kind. That's the reciprocal part, not emotional, procedural, like when somebody raises their voice at you in a meeting and you match the volume. Not because you're mad, but because you refuse to be small. Now let's talk energy, because energy is the quiet boss in this whole story. India imports most of its oil. America wants India buying more U.S. LNG long-term contracts, dollar-based, politically aligned. Sounds good, until Russia shows up with discounted oil and fewer questions. China shows up with infrastructure money and speed. Middle Eastern partners show up with investment. And India says, hold on. Steve Harvey pause, looks off. Camera, why would I pay more just to prove loyalty? That's not ideology, that's arithmetic. Energy costs affect inflation, growth, elections. Leaders don't survive expensive fuel, so India diversifies. That's the Chinese checkers move. Sliding across the board, not flipping it. Now layer in H-1B visas. This one cuts deep. Indian professionals didn't just fill gaps in the U.S. They built systems, tech, healthcare, research. When fees rise, rules tighten, and numbers like $100,000 start circulating, even as proposals or escalated costs. The message feels hostile, even if the policy language sounds neutral. And in geopolitics, how it feels matters almost as much as what's written. India looks at that and says, why we exporting our brains if the door keeps getting heavier? So they invest at home, semiconductors, AI, defense manufacturing, startup incentives, not overnight, but intentionally. Now add diplomacy. Trump publicly claiming a role in brokering India-Pakistan ceasefire talks. India doesn't fully embrace the narrative. Why? Because India prefers bilateral control and resists third-party mediation optics. That ain't ego, that's doctrine, again, sovereignty. So when you line it all up, tariffs, agriculture disputes, energy choices, visa pressure, diplomacy, you don't see chaos, you see consistency. Every move points to one thing, India refusing dependency. And America ain't wrong either. They protecting voters, industries, supply chains. This ain't heroes and villains. This is two major powers recalibrating in a world where leverage is temporary and alliances are conditional. This is like two strong adults trying to co-parent a future they both want control over. Nobody evil, nobody innocent, just interests. And once interests diverge this clearly, the relationship changes, whether anybody announces it or not. Now breathe, because understanding this part is how you make sense of what's coming next. All right, now sit with me for a second. This the moment where Steve Harvey leaned forward, elbows on the desk, voice dropped just a notch. Look at me, because what's next ain't about flags waving or speeches clapping. It's about receipts, yours, if this path continues. And all signs say it is the first thing you gonna notice is prices, not tomorrow. Not all at once, but steady, quiet, relentless. When you put 50% tariffs on goods moving between two massive economies, companies don't take that hit out of kindness. They pass it on like hot potatoes at a family cookout. Pharmaceuticals cost more, electronics creep up, auto parts get pricier, clothes start feeling luxury, adjacent, and people gonna say, why everything's so expensive? Steve Harvey paused this, is why. Next, jobs and innovation. When visa pathways tighten and costs balloon, talent does not vanish. It relocates. India keeps more engineers at home, builds more labs, funds more startups. China absorbs more supply chain activity. The U.S. still innovates, but it pays more to do it. That shifts where the next AI center gets built, where chip fabs rise, where defense tech scales. Power follows productivity, always has. Now watch alliances, because this is the quietest and most important part. India won't announce a breakup, no dramatic press conference. They'll just stop calling as much. Fewer automatic alignments, more energy deals with Russia, more coordination with China in multilateral forums, even while competing with them. That's grown folks diplomacy. You don't marry everybody. You just make sure you ain't dependent on the one person who can walk out and leave you stranded. America's still powerful. Don't get it twisted. Dollar strong, military strong, innovation strong. But power in 2025 ain't just strength. It's options, and India just expanded theirs. Steve Harvey truth. Bomb moment, long pause, hard stare at camera. This ain't about who's right. It's about who's ready. If you're a worker watching this, understand this. Skills that travel win. If your skill only works in one system, one country, one setup, you vulnerable. If you're a student, study what moves the world now. Energy, technology, logistics, geopolitics. That's where tomorrow's checks come from. If you're an entrepreneur, diversify your suppliers, your markets, your assumptions, because the old one partner forever model is done. And for leaders, anywhere, here's the lesson wrapped in Steve Harvey motivation. You can't run 21st century nations on 20th century expectations. Loyalty costs more now. Influence expires faster, and respect. Respect gotta be mutual or it turns into resistance. The balance of power don't flip with explosions. It shifts with decisions. One tariff, one visa rule, one quiet no at a negotiation table. So stay informed. Don't let global politics be background noise while it's rearranging your future. Understand why things cost what they cost, why jobs move, why alliances bend instead of break. Because when the music changes, the people who hear it early don't panic. They adjust their suit, Steve Harvey straightens jacket, and they move with the rhythm.